Hello. Hope you're having a great day. So, I just want to talk a little bit about James, something that a lot of people, I watch countless discussions and videos on James too. There's something I want to point out that a lot of people are not aware of or haven't taken notice. So, James start off right away in verse 1. He's writing to the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad. Okay. So these were, so James was part of the stick of Judah. So he was one that was in Jerusalem. So he's writing to the stick of Joseph here, the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad. Okay. Again, dispersed from where? Away from Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the center of theocracy, where the temple was. Okay. So when he said dispersed, okay. And this is probably a hint to them that it was time for their gathering, maybe. I don't know. It's possible. But anyway, when he mentioned that you're dispersed, alrighty. So anyway, so it's important to understand who he's writing to. So if we look at the timeline, so you had the 70 weeks mid. Well, okay, this timeline reflects the result due to happen in 70 weeks, okay? It's not within the 70 weeks, okay? 70th week ended in the year AD 33, just a few years after crucifixion. Actually, 3.5 years to the very day in the Hebraic calendar after Jesus' crucifixion. Exactly 3.5 years, okay? So anyway, so what was going on here during this time, this was AD 44. This time here line here goes all, or this PDF here goes all the way up to year 60, and then it continued on from 60, 61, all the way to year 73. So again, James was writing to the 12 tribes that had been dispersed. We need to understand what's going on with the 12 tribes at the time. They were there's a separation of wheat versus tares. And so some were coming to Christ, others were not. And so if you go to Romans, let's see here. Where, let's see here. Yeah. What then? What Israel seeking had not obtained, but those who were chosen obtained it, and the rest were hardened. So their hearts were hardened. Okay, so you had the wheat versus the tares. The wheats were coming to Christ; these were the chosen, and the rest were simply God just allowed their heart to harden. So what's happened? It was they were getting darker and darker. Time went on until all the way to their end. By the time the book of Revelation was written, it was not written in the 90s. I know that a lot of people believe that, but it was definitely not written in the 90s. Those who believe that are 100% confused, don't know it. I believe it was written around March of AD 66. So by the time John wrote that, those who were hardened, their hearts were hardened. They're in such darkness, they're in such wickedness by then, that John referred to them as the synagogue of Satan. And so, what does this have to do with anything? Well, in James 2, he pointed about faith without works. So he says right here, this is a key verse right here, the very last verse. This is often overlooked. For just as the body without the spirit is dead. So he comparing his own faith, his own works, to a person who claims to have faith, but does not have the spirit. So that person does not have the gift of faith that James had. If you study in depth Paul, the gift of faith, it's something that God gives you. It's a spirit. Okay, when you become born of God, you have faith. You have the desire to good works. Okay, so this here is somebody who without the spirit dead. So also faith without works is dead. So comparing somebody who claims to have faith. Okay, says he has faith, but no works. All right, so that's what he's comparing himself to. Okay, and James believed that faith saves. Now this is not in the Greek here. Let's see here. But it's not in the Greek there. But can faith save him? So this is a person who does not have the Spirit, obviously does not have the gift of faith, but claims to have faith. All right. So anyway, what's happening here? The contrast between the wheat versus the tares, the Jews who came to Christ versus the Jews who rejected Christ, it was widened, became more and more obvious as time went on, who's in Christ, who is not. And so you could tell by their works, these people are in Christ. Those who are not in Christ, they're becoming more and more wicked. So it's not like today where a Gentile believer, Christian, and people who claim to be Jew today, they're only Jew by belief. They're not really Jew by blood. They're not part of the tribes that James is writing to here. The house was left desolate in year 8073. So they're not around anymore, okay? So when you see somebody do a good work today, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're saved, all right? It doesn't necessarily reflect a God-given faith. So, for example, an atheist, they're in the classroom and they see a classmate, peer, drop a pencil. They pick up that pencil for them. Here you go. That does not mean that person is saved. All right. What that means is the person just following the principle, treat others like you want to be treated, whatever. But this is not somebody who has the Spirit. But again, when James is writing to these 12 tribes, the contrast between the Jews who came to Christ and did not, it became more and more apparent, more and more obvious, okay? So it's not like today. It just, the best way to put it today is take the darkest person the darkest spiritually, and compare that to the person who you think is the most Christ-like that you've ever come across, and compare the two. Now you kind of give it somewhat of a vivid picture, but it was more on a larger scale back then, because 2/3. Remember Zechariah? Here, let's go to Zechariah. 8 and 9. It will come about in all the land, said the Lord, declared the Lord, talking about the land of Israel. Okay, that 2 parts in it will be cut off and perish, but the third be left in it. So the 2/3 that were cut off and perished, these are the ones that did not have the Spirit, all right? And the 1/3 that were left in it, the one that came to Christ. I will bring the third part to the fire, find them as silver refined, and test them as gold tested. I believe that was the Daniel 12:12 prophecy, 1,335 days, which is right here. This is from August 15th of 8066 all the way to April 10th of 8070. That's the 1,335 days. That was the refinement of fire. So that is what James was actually preparing them for. Actually, no, I take that back. This is the 12 tribes that have been scattered. So that means that it had been preparing them for before they had left. They had reached their gathering. Okay, this has more to do with the stick of Judah. John, when he talked about Antichrist, plural, he was preparing them in his letter, the 3 letters, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. He's writing to the stick of Judah, preparing them for the 1,335 days. James, on the other hand, during the tribes been scattered throughout, so he had been preparing them, but led up to the time of 8064, where Nero were persecuting Christians all throughout the Roman Empire, so trying to murder Christians. So it didn't matter whether Jew or Gentile, but that's not very relevant here, because he was focused on the Jewish people. They were in their final days. Gentiles are still here today. Unfortunately, a lot of people who are Gentile interpret the last days as something to do with them. No, it had to do with the house of Israel. Remember Matthew chapter 23, verse 36 and 38. Jesus has said the house would be left desolate. He didn't say a portion of the house would be left desolate. He said the house, referring to the whole thing. So anyway, So the point I'm trying to bring here is that James is writing to the 12 tribes here. He's not writing to you. He's not writing to me. And we can look at this from a third person perspective. Are there principles to be gained from this? Yes. James is not saying here, and I've already made a video on this, he's not saying that man is justified by works. He said that you see that a man is justified by works. Okay, the Greek word that's used here means to acquire. You cannot, on the basis of the claim, faith alone, know whether a person's justified or not, or whether they're saved or not. You cannot do that. That's why Jesus said you will know them by their fruits. Okay, I already got a video on this, but he's not saying that a man is justified by works. Okay, you could see that acquire that a man is justified by works. Okay, but again, he's writing to the 12 tribes. So the works they're talking about there, what they were saying with the works in Christ versus the Jews who rejected Christ, who never had a spirit in them. They're just dead faith. It's not a faith given to them by God. Okay. So anyway, that's all I want to point out. We need to look at the timeline. Who is he writing to? Audience relevance. That's part of hermeneutics. A lot of people just ignore today. A large majority ignore today. So, and that's one of the reasons why I created this channel, to focus on hermeneutics. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, and just some thoughts I throw in there. Thank you, and have a great day.